Thank you and welcome back to the Fowler Show. I got to tell you, folks, we have seen the continuation of what is something that's so alarming to me and so crazy that we're actually dealing with this in this country, where there's more and more and more influence is given to corporations, not just because, they have, lobbyists that barrel money in, but now after Citizens United, they're allowed to give to campaigns without any limits. No campaign limits, just giving freely of themselves. America, I got to tell you, I have a problem with that. I really do. And I think we need to make change on that. But I'm not the one to talk about this. We're joined on the phone by Dave Cobb from the Move to Amend Coalition. David Cobb, excuse me. David, welcome to the show. Cobb, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I always kerfuffle people's names. So Dave, if it's Dave, you go by Dave, right?
Either Dave or David, it's all good.
So tell me, how do we move to amend?
Well, first let's say move to amend what? And that is the United States Constitution, which is, of course, a heavy lift. But it's something we have to do, Richard, because the United States Supreme Court has created out of whole cloth two fundamentally illegitimate, court-created, another word for judicial activism, by the way, but court-created legal doctrines that have stolen our sacred right to self-government. The first, the idea that corporations must be treated as if they are persons with constitutional rights. Now, that's not just a legal technicality, Richard. If a corporation has constitutional rights, it means corporate lawyers can go into court and overturn environmental protection laws, worker safety laws, public health laws, and campaign finance laws, as they did in the Citizens United case, on the idea that such a democratically enacted law violates a corporation's constitutional rights. The second illegitimate, also court-created idea is the idea that because, quote, money equals speech, end quote, and that spending of money is speech in the political process, that the courts have overturned campaign finance laws. This doctrine began in 1976 in the Buckley versus Vallejo decision. And, Richard, in 1975, before that decision, it was a felony in most states to use corporate money to even influence an election process. And look how low we've sunk. So these two court doctrines, again, not an individual law, not even an individual case, but core doctrines have stolen our sacred right to self-government.
Now, David,
yes.
I want to stop you right there, because I think that's a very, very interesting point that people don't understand. And if you sort of look at, I think if we had a graphic here, or you look at the changing of, the crushing of the middle class and destruction of the middle class and working class and the degradation of unions in this country, and you tie that to the fact that corporations now have more control and influence over the process, you sort of understand where I'm going with this, right?
Absolutely. And Richard, this is why what you've just done is really lift up the point I'm trying to make when I say that it's not a technicality. This is not something that merely lawyers or even merely organizers or activists should be concerned with. The reality is, I know what you know and what your listeners know, and that is that these huge transnational corporations are not just exercising power today, they are ruling over us the same way that kings once ruled subjects or masters once ruled slaves. These unelected and unaccountable corporate CEOs using the corporate form are basically making fundamental public policy decisions of all our lives. And all we have to do is look to the emergency manager or so-called emergency manager.
Oh, David, don't get me started. I got on this emergency manager stuff last week about what's taking place in Michigan. Don't get me started. You're going to get my blood boiling.
And it should boil. And I hate to do this to you, and don't tell your doctor on me, Richard, but your blood and my blood and your listeners' blood should be boiling, because this is what fascism looks like when elected officials do not even have the authority to make legislative decisions because concentrated capital and their stooges are actually stripping away our power. The point I'm making is that we need a broad and deep social movement.
We do.
A concrete campaign. And this is the thing. A movement alone won't get it done. A political party alone won't get it done. What we have to do is merge those two together so we have a social movement that is integrated into a concrete campaign that will actually be sufficiently systemic. And I submit to you, Richard, that's what the Move to Amend coalition represents.
I love that. I love that.
Campaign.
I love that, David, because I think you're 100% right. If we want to see real and true social change in this country, whether it's on Move to Amend or any other issue, it has to be tied social. It has to be a social movement that has political implications. I think sometimes we think about political movement that have social implications, but we really got to turn, we got to flip that Gucci over. I really believe that.
Well, thank you, and I'm really proud to be part of the Move to Amend coalition, where we're actually saying we're building independent political processes that are not going to go to either the existing establishment parties to ask them to negotiate with us or even negotiate for us. We're actually building an independent political force that simply instructs the electoral process how they have to behave. That's what they're doing in the global south, specifically in Latin America. It's what happened in Iceland. And you see the difference in taking that orientation. And I want to underscore, Richard, if any of your listeners are turned on by what they're hearing, go to the website, www.movetoamend.org. Learn more, and more importantly, sign up so we can be in touch with you.
Yeah, I love that, David. I think you're right. First, people, if you're listening tonight and you're part of Fowler Nation, go ahead and go to the website, Move to Amend. We've been there. We believe in it. And on top of that, join the movement. And this is how we really do it. It's about connecting socially together to create real systemic change. All the other issues that we're facing in this country, and I think you'll agree with me on this point, David. When you think about the student loan debt we have in this country, you think about the fact people won't raise the minimum wage in this country. You think about the problems that we have with the sequester, the cuts to Head Start. All those cuts are influenced by the fact that corporations the corporations are quote unquote people, according to Mitt Romney, and they could just influence members of the government however they feel like it.
The only thing I'll say is you didn't go far enough. You say it's implicated by. I would say it's a direct result of. So
I'll take that.
Again, yeah, right. I mean, I say it with a loving nudge, but it's a nudge to be sure to say, let's actually get even more explicit and call out what we actually know is going on. We have been taught that we live in a democratic republic in this country. We've been taught that we, the people, are sovereign. We've been taught that only human beings have constitutional rights, and yet the world we're living in doesn't reflect the best principles and values of what this country is supposed to be based on. You see, I'm not a cynic at all, Richard. I would actually say I am a patriot who is actually taking the promise of this country seriously. We're not living in the country that we should, but we could if we actually took ourselves and this movement and our country sufficiently seriously.
I couldn't have said it better myself. We've got to take this movement seriously. We've got to take this country seriously, and we really just got to get corporations out of our politics. Politicians are elected, and I think you'll agree with me here, David. They're elected by the people, for the people, not for AOL or Comcast or AT&T or the Koch brothers or Sheldon Adelson or any other corporation that's traded on the NYSE.
I'm happy to not only agree with you and not have to push you on that one. You said it perfectly. Corporations are not people, and they don't have constitutional rights. And let's just be clear about this. I'm not anti-corporation, and I don't think you are, or the folks at the Fowler Nation are. Corporations can be used for good and effective ways, a good way to organize people to do certain things, and I think commerce should be encouraged. I think that people should be able to make a fair profit, but the corporation as an entity cannot claim constitutional rights to overturn the democratic process. That, my friend, is not how our system is supposed to operate. And the reason that we can bring principled liberals, principled conservatives, and moderates together is because this transcends issues. And it actually gets to the heart of, do we have the functioning Republican form of government that we were promised in this country? Because this is not about issues, as I said, this is about the system. Do we have a political system, a legal system that is how our founders actually contemplated it? We, the people, are sovereign. We collectively make decisions, but no political decision can violate the human rights of individual living, breathing human beings. Saying it that way is very simple. It's also clear to see how corporate personhood or corporate constitutional rights perverts our sacred right to self-government.
I agree with you there. Like I tell people all the time, you can't walk around with the American flag on your lapel and the Constitution in your coat pocket and not believe in the fact and the power of the people over the power of corporations. David Cobb, we appreciate you so much for being on the Fowler Show. Thank you so much for being here, sir. We really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, and please have me back on because this movement is growing, and I'd love to check in with you from time to time, Richard, and let the Fowler Nation know what's going on.
Oh, of course you can. Of course you can. And speaking about Fowler Nation, you can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page, www.youtube.com/Fowler Show. You want to join the conversation, hashtag Fowler Nation, or tweet the Fowler Show, and you can talk to us 24/7.